Here we go.
Might be important. 16.
Okay, let's everybody get through. You want to redo it here? Okay. All right. So I asked the class to do something from at the end of our last class period. So I wanted you to look online and find some articles related to your topic that may or were probably not done in a persuasive way that was ethical. How many of you were able to find that? A little bit? Okay. All right, so part of that may be that it's hard to identify these things that are not done in a way that are ethical or that are in the ways that we're going to be teaching, the logical arguments. So I've decided this term to switch things up a little bit. I used to wait for this until after we got through all the persuasive arguments, but instead I've decided to talk about persuasion and their fallacies at this part of the class before you start learning the logical ways, because my guess is you've had a lot more exposure to fallacies and persuasion than the real good stuff. So let's identify this. First of all, who can identify what persuasion is? Yeah.
When you try to convince someone of something.
Okay, all right, so you could be doing that, and if they agree with you, then what?
You succeed in persuading them.
Okay. Let's say that they already agree with you.
Oh.
Then what?
Well, you wouldn't hard persuade them because they're already agreed to it?
You could be adding new information to what they already know.
Okay, so you can be reinforcing their persuasion. So sometimes, and it's just, if you think of it this way, we all know that we should be practicing good nutrition and we should be exercising, but we don't always, or ever, whatever it is. So, those are things that we can pretty much get on board with, but we lose our motivation in those areas. So even if you have a topic that's pretty agreeable to the class, which means you have a favorable audience, it doesn't mean that you can't persuade us in some way, because we will lack in some ways, and maybe there's different reasons why we agree with it, so we may want to reinforce it with other reasons. So now that and that's just a real watered-down version of persuasion. We'll get into this in more detail this week. But now that we kind of know what persuasion is, let's talk about fallacies. So arguments that are not logical. So the thing about fallacies is there's a lot of people in this world that are quite comfortable manipulating information or manipulating others so that you, me, will spend our time, our money, our efforts, our votes on things that we may even not agree with. And there's a lot of people that are quite comfortable with that. It's a dirty trick. And what's important for you to know is that although we can't stop it from happening, we can do two things. We can identify it and make decisions on our own with what's good for us. It's hard to get away from fallacies in the world. Fallacies are out there. The other thing we can do is make sure we're not using fallacies. We set out the ethical moral code for ourselves and others through our examples. So fallacies are flawed in reasoning. Something's not quite right. And they can be very unethical, they can be dangerous, or they can be kind of funny. I used to like to show the Geico commercials in here because they were so funny and they had nothing to do with insurance. They had these storylines. So we can actually have a fun time with them, but usually those are pretty blatantly fallacies, blatant fallacies. So your book has listed a number of different fallacies within it. I'm going to have each of you take one of these, and this is in your text, so you don't you have this even if you lose this paper. There are more details. need the stapled copies back, because I only have so many copies made. But these are for you to refer to the longer descriptions. I don't have, I don't have enough copies of these to go around to everybody, so I'll need, so if we have some sharing, hold on, who is sitting next to somebody that doesn't have a copy? You have 2 copies. Okay, I only have 2 copies left, and I have more hands up, so you can make, okay. All right, there we go. All right, so, and I'll need those back because I'll be passing them out to other classes. All right, so let's take a look at what some of these fallacies are. I've added to this because your book has a number of fallacies in there, and these are good. But there's also something, I mean, just like with all the other concepts we've learned, they can have the same word, or different words for the same thing. Okay, I really don't like technology being used in here when we aren't actually working on it. So I just read Carolyn as well. Computers down. Okay, so let's take a look and see what fallacies we're looking at. First one on the list, and this is a really common one, misplaced authority. Okay, where do we see this at? Somebody says you should do this because somebody says you should do it.
Siblings.
Maybe. Maybe.
Toothpaste ads?
Where did that come from?
9 out of 10 does
Can you
just
give me,
recommend?
yeah, give me a little more of a background of what you're thinking.
Like, you know, 9 out of 10. Okay, 9.
9 out of 10 dentists recommend this toothpaste or say you should brush your teeth with this toothpaste 2 or 3 times a day or whatever.
Like that, yeah.
You guys are watching
Here's what
commercials.
those dentists say.
I'm just, all right, let's hold on to that example.
Or what about an adult, like in a TV show or a commercial, who's trying to be considered a teenager or in a teenager situation?
Very good.
I hate that.
Okay, all right, so that's an example of a misplaced authority. We're gonna hold on to the dentist example because there are fallacies in that. So let's hold on to that. You're onto something, and that's one of the things that's important when you're recognizing fallacies. You usually have some kind of a gut instinct reaction to it. Something doesn't seem right, or it seems kind of funny to us. So, yes, these examples that you're talking about are part of this misplaced authority. Questionable cause or false analogy. You could look at maybe some kind of superstition thing. You know, because it's Monday, it's a bad day. Okay, that's a false analogy.
Or because it's the 13th, it's a bad day.
Yes, so those are some things that can come up, or of course some other commercials. What was the one with the roadside ditch? That one always came up. Is it Dish Network or something like that? You should subscribe to this because all these bad things could, will likely happen here.
AT&T? No, Allstate?
Is it with the Mayhem Melvin thing?
Yes, that's part of it. Those are part of the false.
His name's Melvin.
Yeah, Mayhem Melvin.
Did not know that.
Now, this one we are way too familiar with, and your book talks about this, but this is attacking the other person, the other character, instead of talking about the argument. This is really common in politics. Name calling instead of looking at the issue, or attacking a person's character or people that they love around them is an issue. So this one is a really, really big problem right now in our culture today, is not even looking at the issues, but getting into these fights with each other. That is also called a genetic fallacy. You know, calling somebody ugly. you know, in the middle of a fight. Because what happens when somebody slings an insult at you?
It's rude.
It's rude, and what do we do?
It hurts my feelings.
Insult
I
back,
cry.
retaliate.
Okay, so a lot of us, yeah, and so we have some fighters in here. So if somebody calls you a name, you're gonna retaliate. Next thing you know, you're really not fighting about the thing. You know, the argument has gone in a completely different direction.
Forget what you're fighting about in the first place.
Right, and what does it look like to outsiders?
Just figuring who makes the best insult.
Yes, it becomes entertainment.
Yeah, we're more concerned about what they're saying than the actual position they hold.
And that can lead us down what's called rabbit trails, which is a, let me see if I have it on here, a type of red herring. So what that means is you get distracted from the issue. So we can actually do that by adding other fallacies in there. If you have, somebody has a personal attack on a person, everybody can go in this complete different direction. Red herring, that's one way to pull a red herring on in an argument. But a red herring, that distraction can be anything. It can be taking a similar topic. You know, if I were to say, well, if you're going to be complaining about tuition costs, maybe you should look a little more closely at how much you're paying for books. If I did that, that's considered a red herring. It's a dirty way to distract from the problem that we're trying to resolve. Maybe it's tuition. Maybe books are a problem, but that's a whole different issue. So it allows these waters of argument to get muddy when you start adding in these other things. Be careful on citations. The fact versus opinion, the individual that's very good at this is typically a good public speaker, highly emotional, and we can look at conspiracy theories.
Oh, I love those.
It's something you have to look at very closely. Maybe consider it more entertainment. But the fact versus opinion, that's why we have those fact checks everywhere. And that one's another big problem that we have today. Okay, so we've talked about red herring. Straw man is somewhat like a red herring, that's why I put them together. Does anybody know what a straw man is?
Scarecrow?
I mean, you're not wrong.
He's not wrong.
Yeah. Come on, guys.
Okay, but when we're talking about fallacies. Okay, it's like saying, let's say that you have a really good argument. If I'm making a show of this, I could say, well, the thing is that you think this, and then I attack that other thing, that's not really what you said. And so what I'm doing is I'm setting something up that I can blow down very quickly, even though that's not what you said. And so you're going to be like, that's not what I said, that's not what I said. I'm like, oh, yes it is, because, you know, so I can really...
Like twisting the words.
Yes, yes. It's highly manipulative. Anybody see a straw man lately? Okay, think about this with these topics. I hope when you're thinking about this, maybe thinking about what you did these last couple of days, that some of this is coming up. Okay? What's bandwagon? What are we doing?
Everybody's jumping on.
Okay, yeah, and there was a time where slavery was okay, according to everybody. Yeah. Okay, it's not okay because everybody else is doing it. You've got to question these things. Okay, hasty generalization. What's hasty generalization? It is, yeah. The story of one doesn't explain everything. Yes.
I was just going to say something along the lines of making a conclusion based on minimal evidence, perhaps.
That's right. It's a misuse of inductive reasoning. Consider a detective. If a detective were to not take his or her time and collect information because there was so much pressure. This happens. So much pressure. Who done it? they can easily jump into hasty generalization. Okay, post hoc, that's another superstition thing. Okay, you probably see this in social media. It's not as much as it used to be, I don't think, but it has to do with taking an entire post and making sure that you have to copy and paste the entire post and put it on your main page, because if you don't, bad things will happen.
Like a chain letter?
Yes!
Or the Facebook messages about like finding money, like you post on like your feed or whatever it's called.
Yes. Yes. So it's kind of silly, but how many of us have kind of fallen for it? Oh, just in case, it was from my mom, and she'll get really mad at me. Certainly we do. Okay, so this one here, big one, big issue. It's saying that there's only two solutions. It's either the right way or the wrong way. Either you give to this charity or all the kids are going to starve and die. It's really, really extreme. Slippery slope says because one bad thing happens, that's the beginning of the end. Just wait. It's total collapse. Because we had one argument with a neighboring country. It means it's a full-on war. It's not. Okay, and then appeal to tradition. We've always done it this way. Why would we change now? It's working. Okay, so let's look at a couple of examples. This one is in 1986, I believe.
Challenger?
Challenger, yes. But there's a lot of problems with argument strategies. They knew something was wrong.
I remember Nixon's speech for that. Or not Nixon. Well. Huh?
What was the last one?
Well, this wasn't the last one. This was one where there was a, it's Reagan.
Reagan, yeah.
Yeah, Reagan.
Something-
I was like, who was the president?
Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
So this was the argument when they were saying there's a problem. We've flown the shuttle 19 times. So that tradition is appealed. Okay, this is very current. Proactive is known for their fallacies. Okay, does anybody know the individuals that are up on that?
Who's Kendall Jenner? I'm playing.
So here we have two celebrities, okay, and Maroon 5, who's like, I don't know, 40-something, advertising for proactive enacting. Something doesn't seem quite right with that. And the same thing here. Okay, it doesn't make you an expert in this. So there's a lot of fallacies going on. Okay, I do have this PowerPoint up in our class. So you're welcome to download that and take some notes. For this one, your jobs are to see about fallacies within the media. See, now that we've gone through the lecture, see if you can find some fallacies. When we come back, we'll be full swing, full diving into persuasion. Don't forget to take the exam. I just need the white papers back.